The pressure is mounting for Auburn and Baylor, and the line is moving for Auburn and Baylor.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This is the crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Baylor. I'm Zac Blackerby, host of Locked On Auburn. He is Cam Stuart, host of Locked On Baylor. What's the best matchup individually in favor of Baylor, in favor of Auburn? We'll get to that in a second. Since the last time we spoke, Cam Stuart, and we talk a good bit.
We do.
I guess I should clarify. Last time we spoke on camera, the line has moved. It was 1.5 in Auburn's favor. Now Auburn is a 2.5 point favorite, according to our really good friends, our best friends over at FanDuel. I think the line's going to close at Auburn minus 3.5. Are you shocked that there has been movement in favor of Auburn in this game?
I mean, yeah, but I shouldn't be, just because this is kind of how the preseason goes.
Yeah.
Right. Auburn had a better transfer portal class for sure. And
right.
The SEC hot button topic is still better than the Big 12. I just think it's a little closer than some people think. So I don't know where the point comes from in June. That's just me, but I'm not terribly surprised by it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think both of these teams are in similar spots as far as like the coaches trying to prove something, different stages of tenure, right? I mean, obviously, Baylor's got a more tenured coach than Auburn does, but they're still trying to prove something. And I think also people are slowly coming around to the fact of like, oh, Baylor is good. Like Baylor was pretty hot to end the season last year. And that's something that really I started paying more attention to in response to the last time you and I did this, and people reaching out like, oh, Baylor was good. I'm even more worried about this game.
They're weirdly kind of in similar spots, just from a national standpoint. Like obviously Auburn has the name brand recognition and has the SEC patch and had a really good transfer portal. Baylor did too, kind of under the radar because they didn't need as many, big time plug and play starters as a lot of these other guys near the top of the list. But both these teams are like, hey, we're different from last year. We're better than last year. And we're going to prove it to you on a Friday night on national television.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think it being on a Friday night helps Baylor's home field advantage or not? Like, do you think it has an impact at all?
I actually would think if it were anything, it hurts it.
I don't want to be presumptuous and saying talking about big time. I think I agree.
Big time high school football country. Like that's kind of a big deal. I mean, it will still be, I think, a really good atmosphere. I think it'll be a sellout. They've announced the blackout, which is a night game. Thank God. I don't know if they could do that during the day and 110 degrees, but I think it's going to still be a good atmosphere. But if it's going to do anything, I think it would hurt it more than help it because it's on a Friday night. But it's going to be tremendous.
Yeah, I've seen some people talk about like the timing of the Friday night, and if it was week 5, I'd be fine with that. But they're not like in the weekly grind of the season timing yet, so you haven't really established that. So I don't think that's gonna matter. I mean, I almost think you could trick yourself into thinking it's a Saturday night game if you really wanted to.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this last time, but like nobody likes a non-Saturday football game, just in general. Like we like watching those Friday night games as fans, but
you don't want to be your team though.
Yeah, and the benefit is that this is week 1, that it's not that you're not being taken out of the schedule of things.
Yeah.
No.
So you talked about it being the off season. Which it is.
Yep.
Undeniably, we are in the off season.
Certain.
You're seeing Auburn pop up on more lists, and honestly, I saw coming. I didn't see it. But now, like the newest one this week is, speaking of the transfer portal, like Auburn potentially having 3 first-round draft picks. You've seen a few mocks come up, and they're saying like Xavier Chaplin, the left tackle, number 1 left tackle in the transfer portal from Virginia Tech. He was picked 12th overall to our New England Patriots, by the way. I don't know if you saw that.
Put him
at the other side opposite Will Campbell.
Okay. Have you measured his arm length yet? Have you done that?
I bet they're longer than Will Campbell's, I guess.
All right. I like it. Okay.
What a low bar, apparently, right?
Yeah.
And then the other one, the top receiver, most places had him as the top player in the portal, Eric Singleton. And then Keldrick Falk, who, he's exceptional. He has been since he was a freshman. But you're seeing lists like that, like, oh, Auburn may have 3 first-round draft picks. And, oh, Auburn's like ranked consistently in the top 25 now by pretty much everyone. And ESPN FPI, if that's even a real thing that matters, really liking the Tigers. Like, you're seeing more hype, buzz, positive conversation around Auburn than I personally saw coming.
Yeah, it's conversation that wasn't happening at, the second week in December in 2024, right? Like, that wasn't the buzz.
I mean, it wasn't happening about Auburn a year ago.
Right. Same thing. And honestly, I'm seeing a little bit of it on the Baylor side too, of like, there's still, you're kind of 50-50 on these preseason polls on whether they're in the top 25. But like Phil Steele just did his Big 12 predictions and had Baylor as number 1, like as one of the favorites to win the conference.
How do you feel? How did that make you feel?
I like when Baylor slides under the radar more because they very rarely live up to expectations when the hype is high, just historically.
Man, so many Auburn fans are like, yeah, us too.
Yes,
us too.
We feel that, man. I
Garrett Stidham forever.
Yes. It literally like 2 times ever that they've had hype and have actually lived up to it and been a good team. But I think it's kind of nice that they are getting some respect, because you're not alone in this, Zach, and the Auburn fans are not alone in this. They were sneaking up on a lot of people still and will sneak up on a lot of people even up until August 29th of like, oh yeah, you know what? They are good. And they are bringing a lot of players back from a good team last year. But it is nice to see that people aren't just picking them like, oh, Baylor's nice. They'll be 4th in the Big 12. Like, it is nice to see someone like, no, they're good enough to win this conference, which, as you know, is always wide open. So this is only going to grow with these 2 teams matched up against each other in week 1. I think that does do something.
Yeah, I hope they're both ranked, and several people's top 25. Like, you're seeing them like 22 and 23. Like, that'd be great on a Friday night.
What else are you gonna be watching?
I guess to your point, high school football.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, you literally said that.
Football, yeah.
You literally said it.
But I think Dallas got canceled, so I don't think that's on Friday nights anymore. The soap opera.
Oh,
it's the television program.
Ooh, okay, got it.
That's.
I was about to ask you something, and that really just derailed my train of thought.
I know who shot JR. I know who did it.
I'm proud of you.
Wondering. Thank you.
I've heard the reference, but I don't know who actually shot him.
This is good. Maybe we'll watch some Dallas for you in this summer.
Maybe do a crossover on that because we talked about this game so much. No, I think like even the buzz. Oh, I remember what I was going to ask you. I remember what I was going to ask you. Do you agree with Phil Steele and saying, yes, Baylor's number 1 in the Big 12? Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. I do. And partially that's because I know this team better than all the other teams in the Big 12. But yeah, he had Baylor, Utah, and Iowa State tied for 1. I still not really seeing the Utah stuff with Devin Dampier. But yes, I think Baylor, with how they played last year, they bring back 15 starters. And the most important positions, really, when you're thinking about it, their offensive line is mostly intact. You bring back quarterback, wide receiver 1, tight end 1, running back 1, who are all legitimate first team all Big 12 guys. So yeah, I do think they should be there.
Yeah. All right. What matchup in this game do I think benefits Auburn? What matchups in this game do you think benefits Baylor? That's next, right here on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Baylor. Cam, today's crossover brought to you by our friends at Game Time.
Love them.
Can you imagine buying tickets to a game and not using Game Time?
Literally can't. No,
I can't. I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't want
to. Scary. It's a
Hey,
nightmare.
I've got it pulled up here. You can go ahead and buy tickets in McLean Stadium, Auburn at Baylor. I mean, you can get in 2 seats together at $184 a pop, all in. That's with fees and
top
taxes
25
and all
matchup.
What's up?
Oh, and you can see that price because you can toggle that tool to see what it costs with the fees, unlike other places.
Sometimes I feel like I'm cheating because I've got this one pulled up and it says top 1% value. And I'm like, I want to be part of the top 1% especially when it comes to value.
Yeah.
So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices.
Surely that's not guaranteed, Zach.
It's guaranteed. What? The matchups that I think benefit Auburn. the most. And we talked about this last time you and I sat down.
Mhm.
I think it's both sides of the line of scrimmage. I think benefit the Auburn Tigers. I think Auburn's starting defensive line is good. I have questions about the depth, and if a few guys go down, I'm concerned. Week 1, I'm not expecting that to be the case. Now, if we're talking about, the road trips that Auburn has later in the season to Oklahoma and Texas A&M and hosting Georgia and all that, at that point in the season, I'm a little more concerned. Week 1, I think Auburn's defensive line is going to be in a really good spot from a health standpoint and an upside and talent standpoint, that I think that's going to be beneficial. And then I think Auburn's offensive line, it's experienced. They're used to playing together. I mean, the NFL scouts of the world think Connor Lew and Xavier Chaplin may be two of those, the first drafted at left tackle and at center. And I think that means something, Cam. So I would say the trenches, I actually think benefit Auburn in this matchup. What say you?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about Baylor's offensive line. That's not a shot at Auburn's defensive line. I'm just not too worried about what Baylor puts out up front. But I am concerned about Baylor's pass rush. Big time. I think they brought in some pieces, some prove-it guys. But as you know, like with college football as opposed to the NFL, like there's no preseason games. You don't know what your rotational guys are. You have an idea after spring ball and everything and fall camp, obviously. But like these are going up against NFL guys, right? Like NFL first-round pick guys like Chaplin. So that's a lot to go up against. And I just think that is something that early in a season – against a quarterback in a new system with some new weapons out there, it'd be really nice to get his jersey dirty. And I don't know that Baylor's going to do that. So I don't mind the offensive line standpoint from Baylor, but I do worry that they're not going to be able to get a finger on the passer in this game.
I mean, and that's going to be an important element. I mean, obviously rushing the passer and protecting the passer is always important. Duh. But I do think the element of, there's a lot of pressure on Jackson Arnold, and I'm sure they're going to twist the narratives and like he's going back to the to that part of the country, and he's obviously going to be a big part of the storyline going into this.
Denton Geyer probably has a game that night though, so I don't know how much of his family will go. We'll see.
Okay,
but it isn't that far.
Yeah. I mean, everything in Texas is pretty close to each other.
Yeah, right? Especially when you can go 90 miles an hour. Yeah.
Yeah,
it really makes it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But I do think like if Baylor gets to Arnold early, it's probably over. Like I think that would be a really big hole to climb out of if Baylor can win that matchup, especially with the way they've built everything around Jackson. If that doesn't work, I think Auburn's in trouble.
Yeah, and I would say to add on to that, one of my big fears, and it's probably something you're going to talk about, so I don't mean to steal your thunder, but
you're not stealing it.
Like you're also going up against NFL receivers here, right? With Singleton and Cam Coleman. We talked with Brian Smith last week, Locked on the Portal, and he has me so worried about Cam Coleman. Like I pace around the apartment and usually leave a trail of urine behind me through the pant legs about thinking about Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton and the other guy you just mentioned. So it's going to be Baylor. I said the last time we were here, really tough coverage downfield last year, and not in the good way. I think they have one potential NFL guy right now, and that's Caden Jenkins, who was very up and down last year, had a bad Texas Bowl against Garrett Nussmeier and LSU. So that's one potential NFL guy. Your number 2 guy is someone you brought out of the portal from Ohio State, Calvin Simpson-Hunt, who didn't play a ton of defensive snaps up in Columbus, was mainly a special teamer, but was a big time prospect out of high school. So that is quite a baptism. Like, welcome in. Here you go. Cam Coleman.
And there's only so much you can do too when it comes to that size. I mean, Cam Coleman's big. Eric Singleton has decent size for the type of receiver that he is, but they brought in this dude, his name's Horatio Fields from Wake Forest, who is a giant. He's a monster. I mean, this is I mean, I think Auburn has the second best receiving core, at least on paper, in the country. Now they've got to go out and perform and do whatever they need to do. I think they're second to Ohio State. But to me, once again, I'm concerned about the scheme. Until I see the scheme be consistent and you're able to consistently get those guys the football, like that's the big question.
That's why I love that this game isn't week 3. Like, love it. Genuinely. Yeah. It's like I said, I mean, it does hurt Baylor sort of figuring out what that pass rush is. And it probably does hurt them to an extent in the defensive backfield. But
there's pros and cons to both sides with it being week 1.
Sure. But like not having that chemistry, however people overrate chemistry, underrate chemistry, not having that yet, I think does help Baylor a little bit, because I'm genuinely very concerned about their coverage downfield. And I think this could end up being a shootout. I really do.
It could for sure. I didn't finish my point earlier. That's on me.
Sorry.
No. I just quit talking. But the size of receiver that Auburn is throwing at you, like at some point, there's only so much you can do. Right. Now, can Jackson Arnold's placement be where it needs to be and all that? We'll see. We'll learn pretty quick, I think. But I mean, the 50-50 ball to Horatio and to Cam Coleman, like that's tough. That's tough for any DB.
Yeah, it becomes better probably than 50-50, I would say, for the offense.
That was the case last year, for sure.
Yeah. That is probably my biggest concern. I mean, we got a lot of questions around this Baylor defense just in general. Like I loved the pieces that they brought in the portal, specifically in the middle of that defense, and some, kind of on the back end. They needed some help there. They brought in a new defensive backs coach, Paul Gonzalez, who was like Gary Patterson's right-hand man for a decade at TCU. And a lot of Baylor fans don't have this kind of respect. I don't know why, but I have a ton of respect for what Gary Patterson did at TCU and the defenses that he built. Paul Gonzalez was a big part of that, especially in their transition to the Power 4 into the Big 12, which they hit the ground running on. So I'm impressed by what they did in the offseason, but it is one of those things that you need to see it after a couple of weeks. And Baylor, obviously, as we talked about, has that tough August-September schedule with Auburn and then SMU the next week, and then 2 weeks later against Arizona State, the big defending Big 12 champs. So it's going to be a work in progress, I think. So week 1 might not look that pretty for the Baylor defense.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. And the running back situation for Auburn, I think, is super interesting. You lose Jarquez Hunter, who was incredible. And you have just a bunch of guys that it's like, okay, if one of these guys steps up, I'm not going to be surprised. I think it's Damari Alston. There is a chunk of the fan base that's excited. I think the whole fan base is excited, but some think he's like, could be a starter as Darrell Robinson. Yes. He transferred from UConn. I'm not in that boat yet. I think it's Damari, then Jeremiah Cobb, then Darrell Robinson, but we'll see what happens. We don't know. We don't know what that market share looks like, but with that offensive line and the respect to the receivers, like, is Auburn going to run it more because of the whole RPO situation? That to me is going to be one of the many things I'm looking at week 1.
That was going to be one of my questions to you of like, do we see kind of more of an evolution? Maybe evolution is not the right word, but a different part of the Hugh Freeze kind of philosophy on offense. We were talking
just talking to some of the members of the team last year, every call has a run and a pass attached to it. And depending on what kind of alignment the defense is in is what they do. And obviously last year they were more concerned with stopping Jarquez Hunter than, defending Peyton Thorne in the passing game. Does that change this year? Probably. I mean, if I'm defending Auburn, I'm way more concerned about the guys catching the passes than the guys running the ball. So is that part of how Baylor lines up pre-snap to defend it, to try to bait them to hand the football off? That could totally be a part of it.
Yeah. And what's funny is Dave Aranda used to be really good against RPOs. We haven't seen as much in the Big 12 the last few years. I mean, not as much when every team ran it. But he used to put Lincoln Riley in a headlock like all the time, man. That was the only guy he consistently schemed up terrifically against. So maybe that helps Baylor a little bit, maybe. But I'm intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by this Hugh Freeze offense with the guy, Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, the guy, Jackson Arnold. All right, what is the best matchup in favor of Baylor? Cam tells us in just a moment right here on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Baylor. Cam, from the Auburn perspective, what do Auburn fans need to be most concerned about? Which matchups do you think benefit Baylor in the season opener?
I just think of Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side on the phone. Run the dang ball, Bert. Okay. That really could be what benefits Baylor in this one. When you saw,
are you Sandra Bullock in this?
Yeah, I think I have the chops to be Sandra Bullock in this.
Wow. Okay.
I'm definitely not the lady in real life, Leanne Tui, thankfully. I'm not. I'm Sandra Bullock in this. Run the dang ball, Dave. Run the dang ball, Spav, okay? I think Baylor was a dramatically different team last year when they couldn't run the ball versus when they could. And most of the season they could. But Bryson Washington gets hurt in that LSU Texas Bowl. And as good as Sawyer Robertson is, he throws for 450 in that game. It's just a different kind of offense. It just totally is. And I think Baylor, honestly, has two of the best three running backs in the Big 12 in the same backfield in Bryson Washington and Dawson Pendergrass. And those early season games where you're rotating a lot of guys in because of the weather, I think that is going to help Baylor quite a bit that they have a two-headed monster like that. And we know Auburn kind of middle of the pack last year, to put it lightly, in the rush defense in the SEC. I think Baylor is going to try to, in those early drives, really pound the rock, wear the defense down in what is probably going to be, 100-degree weather. That's just the nature of college football in most of the country in the early weeks of the season. So as much as I love Sawyer Robertson, and as good as he's going to be through the air, and as much as you're bringing, a bunch of top pass catchers back, I really like the matchup on the ground. And that, as you know, opens up a ton for this kind of offense, for Jake Spavital's kind of offense. It opens up the world if you can run the football effectively.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about, how I feel about the starters on Auburn's defensive line. Like, I feel pretty good about them. Mm-hmm. But, if you can get that going and you have to sub those guys out, I do agree with you that could definitely benefit Baylor. But there's some linebackers at Auburn that, like, it's their turn. They lost 4 guys that 3 of them played a lot of snaps at linebacker from a year ago. So DeMarcus Riddick, former 5-star guy, he played more and more as the season went on. You got to assume that he's going to be one of the main linebackers trying to stop this rushing attack for sure. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a theme with this Auburn team, but especially on the defensive side of the ball, of like a lot of guys about to be true sophomores that played a ton. Auburn led the country in snaps for freshmen a year ago. DeMarcus Riddick was part of that. And we'll see, who else is next to him. Robert Woodyard is the experienced guy in that linebacker room who's kind of just been waiting his turn. It's his turn now. So I think those are going to be the 2 guys that are probably most responsible from a linebacker point of view. And then, they really like Malik Blockton, who's going to be an interior guy, kind of plays that 3 technique. True freshman a year ago, played a ton. Now it's time for him to take that larger step. So I love Auburn's back 7. I have questions about Auburn's front 7. I love the upside of it, but they got to go out and prove it. And I think it makes sense for Baylor to test them early.
Yeah. And I kind of want to flip this a little bit, not the exact inverse, but I really like Baylor's linebackers this year. Okay. I did last year. It's the only part of the defense I feel like pretty damn comfortable about, even with some guys who are going to be starters who are coming in through the portal from lower levels, lower conferences. But I'm interested to see how much Dave Aranda can deploy these guys in coverage, because that's something that jumped off the page. The couple of guys they got from the portal, Phoenix Jackson, some of these other guys, Matthew Fobbs White, who's going to be kind of your jack linebacker, more of a pass rusher. But all the linebackers they brought in over the last 2 years have been good in coverage, which is something Baylor didn't have for a long time.
A lot of people don't have that. Linebackers.
Right, man. Yeah. Like that is such a luxury in college football. And I think they've got legitimately 3 guys they can roll in and out who can legit play pass coverage against a top 25 team. That's probably a bit on the high end to have 3 guys, but every guy they brought in over the last 2 years has been able to do that. And so when you look at a team like Auburn, like we mentioned, that's got all these weapons, and you don't have much of a pass rush, I'm wondering how much Baylor's just like, you know what, drop them, drop 7, drop 8. They did that against Colorado last year, which is a much different team. And that's because Colorado's offensive line was so bad. And that's why they did it. It was just like, all right, beat us through the air. Then we'll rush 3 and get to the quarterback. This is a different situation, but with the RPO and the weapons that Auburn has, and a guy, in his first game at Auburn, obviously played in the SEC before, taking away some checkdowns and some of that intermediate stuff, that could be huge for Baylor. So I like that.
Yeah. That makes sense. Makes sense.
It is kind of a prove it, but I do like it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's 2 prove it's, right? Auburn's running game with these running backs of like, who is it versus, Baylor linebackers. I'm sure they'll have several collisions. So, and that might be what determines it. I mean, especially if everything else kind of cancels out. So
I think first down's going to be important, Zach. I think first down's going to be important. I think third down's going to be important.
Here's my thing about it, though.
Yeah,
I think whoever scores more points is actually going to win this game.
That is a crucial part of this, I think. I hadn't thought about that too much, but yeah, I think unless they change it to golf, I think that is a good thing.
Got to win the turnover battle.
Oh, like that.
Got to.
I don't want to fall down early. I don't want to fall down early. Yeah, red area. Got to be good in the red area. Can't be missing opportunities there. Clock management could be big.
Sure. Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. Time of possession's probably going to play a factor. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think if you do all those things,
you need to play like overall better than the other team, I think you're going to win.
Yeah. It could come down to who wants it more. Dare I say.
Cam Stuart, for all the Auburn folks watching, if they want more of this, which I don't know how you wouldn't, how can they find you?
It's at Real Cam Stuart on Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter. You can find me there at Locked On Baylor is where you find us there. We're dropping every day as well on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And we're going to be talking a lot about this Auburn matchup. Obviously, I'm sure we will connect before then, but we'll be talking a lot about that. We take a lot of shots at the SEC too, because that's what we need to do. So find me there as well. So yeah.
Yeah. For all the Baylor folks watching, if you want more Auburn stuff, you can find Locked On Auburn wherever you also find Locked On Baylor. We're there. And
if you just leave a comment, I'll push you to it. I'll send you links if we need to. I'll get Zac Blackerby in your life.
That's incredible. You're so nice. Yeah. You're so nice. For Cam Stuart, I'm Zac Blackerby. This has been a crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Baylor. Jarrett Stidham forever.
Again.
Ha!